Hello and welcome back to goldstocktrades.com. Today we have with us a special guest, Mr. Rob Mcewen, CEO of Mcewen Mining. The symbol is MUX and it's traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Thanks, Rob, for being here with us today.
Pleased to be here. Thank you, Jed.
I'd like to ask you, some of my readers are concerned about the possible geopolitical risks in Argentina and Mexico and the rise of resource nationalism. Can you update us on the situation in Argentina and Mexico?
I'd be pleased to. I'd first like to start that resource nationalism is, I think, a problem around the world, no matter what country you're in, because deals were signed with mining companies to invite them in perhaps 5 or 10 years ago when metal prices were much lower. And with the rise in the metal prices, many politicians and citizens of the various countries in the world are saying, well, shouldn't we be getting more of this after they've attracted the money in? So I think investors, no matter where they're investing in the world, should count on at least a 10 to 20% increase in the taxes over the next 5 years. Argentina not, it has no history. It's never nationalized the property. It could, I suppose, increase the taxes a long way recently, but I don't think that's possible. Recently, they enacted a rule for the mining industry that was already in place for all of the other industries that export their product, and that was they had to channel the revenues through the Central Bank of Argentina and before getting into the currency they wanted. So for us, at our mine down there, for our partners, Hochschild and ourselves, we think that there's a transaction cost of about $1.5 million. So it's not onerous. It's annoying, but it's not onerous. But there's another issue in Argentina, and that is they're experiencing a level of inflation that over time, if metal prices stayed flat, which I don't think they're going to do, but if they stayed flat, then that would compress operating margins. In Mexico, you don't have the inflation. You don't have the government moving to impose higher taxes. What you do have is a level of civil unrest in certain areas of the country that paint a bad picture for the whole country. And that's just the lawlessness in certain areas brought about by the drug lords as they're fighting the government agents. To date, that hasn't given us, there have been a few things that have just put us on a high alert, but we haven't encountered them encroaching on our property or within the region around our property. And you just have to keep watching that. But I can look at Canada and the oil sands, and you would think Canada is a fairly well-developed country. But the premier of Alberta, there was a 1% royalty on the oil sands, and then they said, well, we should be getting more, so they increased it to 5% about a year and a half ago. And then after a little bit of protest and the oil price coming off and all sorts of capital projects being deferred, they said, well, maybe that wasn't a good idea. Let's go back down to 1%. But unfortunately, the money had already left. It's coming back slowly. So that's just showing that governments might realize the error of their ways, but they do create shocks in the marketplace that investors should be prepared for them. And that's all I can really say about those two countries.
Okay, now that the Mcewen mining merger has completed with Minera Andes and U.S. Gold, what opportunities exploration-wise are most exciting to you? Argentina, Mexico? Are you still interested in Nevada?
All right, well, we have a large portfolio of properties, and as you said, we're in 3 countries. If I start at the bottom of the group in terms of location relative to us, Argentina, we're one right next door. Goldcorp came along and bought Andean Resources for $3.6 billion and they're in the process of building a mine that will be producing 500,000+ ounces of gold a year. So, one, it changed the value of the real estate, but two, it highlighted the geological potential of the area. The mine that we own 49% of and is operated by our partners, Hochschild Mining of Peru, it's been running for a couple of years. Last year it produced a little over 5 million ounces silver and just over 80,000 ounces gold. It's a narrow vein, high-grade silver and gold deposit. All of last year was spent doing geophysical surveys and exploration on the property. And all I can say is that as partnership, 3 years ago it was spending $1 million on exploration. Last year it spent $6 million, and this year it's spending $12 million. There have been some very interesting drill results. We'll call them bordering on exciting, that longer intercepts, higher grade, and we have a large property package, as I said, next to this very large one. So within the mine itself, I think there's room to grow, and money is being spent to see if it's there. Outside of the mine, but adjacent to the mine property and Goldcorp's property, we have 3 property packages that we own 100% of, and we're exploring on there. So it's a prolific area. It doesn't guarantee you're going to get gold, but it's certainly a very prospective area to be drilling. And then a little bit south of there, we have some other properties that are closer to some other mines, and we're drilling on those. In the north, we have a very large copper project. It's over 1 billion tons in a 43-101 resource at a grade of 0.55% copper. Or if you looked at all the resources, 12.5 billion pounds of copper. And we're exploring on that. We think it can expand. Coming up to Mexico, the El Gallo property we discovered in 2009. It's now going to be going into production, a 2-phase development program. The first cash flow is going to start in the second half of this year, and the larger portion is going to come in 2014. That property has been giving us pleasant surprises through exploration since we got on it. So I like what's there, and we're continuing to push pretty hard on exploration there as well as development. In Nevada, we're in the permitting process to bring a property on in 2014, bring it into production, a gold property. And Alaska, there was a lot of historic mining, placer mining in the area, and we're drilling there to see what fruit might be born there. So there's a lot we have a lot happening in exploration and production, so there'll be no shortage of news coming out of here.
You were recently quoted in some media outlets saying that there may be some opportunity amongst the juniors, especially as they've been so discounted relative to the price of the underlying bullion. What sort of criteria are you looking for in a suitable acquisition target, and what do you think is the essential question investors must ask themselves before investing in a mining company?
All right. Well, for me, I mean, I guess I'm like a lot of people. If I see a big sale sign, or it's like seeing a big price, if a stock's been hammered down and they have interesting properties, then I'll take a closer look. It's sort of like seeing a big 70% off sale or something. But I look for where is the property located to do an assessment of the country risk. What has been found in the area historically? So what's its geological potential? What has been the record of success of the people doing the exploration? How do they approach their exploration? And one area that's often overlooked is the contracts that the companies entered into and the joint ventures, and what are the obligations and commitments under those. And those often don't get a lot of airtime by analysts or company reports, but they can really impact the value of the company. Some companies may have given away most of their upside because they wanted to get a larger company in to help them explore. So you need to watch that. And I'd look at the compensation levels of management and how much of their own money do they have invested in the story. And I really like stories where people have a lot invested. So they're at risk just as their shareholders are at risk. So to me, that's a check on their decision making and saying, well, what will this do to my share price if I do this? And that would be my first pass. And then if you really like it, you get in a lot closer.
Well, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Jeb, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.